listening to Game On DC, your home for local gaming and esports news in the DMV. Find the show on social media at Game On DC and by using the hashtag GoDC. Without further ado, here are your hosts, John and Joey.
What is up, DMV, and welcome to Game On DC, the show dedicated to you, the gamers and esports fanatics, right here in the East Coast capital of esports. My name is John Fiasco Byram, alongside Joey Courtside King McDermott. Joey, happy Monday. Look, I'm going to call it what it is. It is championship week here in DMV esports, and I could not be more excited. We have Washington Justice going into their play-in games for their postseason. Wizards District Gaming made it back to the finals. We're going to talk a little bit more about that with our guest when we introduce him in just a few moments. But Joey, it is such a great week.
Absolutely. It's a Monday, and Mondays are always tough, but there is so much good stuff to talk about, and I'm ready to jump right in.
All right, just a little homework before we jump in there. The live show is where all the fun happens, so make sure you catch Game On DC live on Twitch on Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you can't make the live show, we do have the podcast version for you as well. You can check that out on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere you can find an RSS feed for podcasts. Just look up Game On DC, and you'll find us popping up there as well. And make sure, of course, as the announcer said in the beginning, make sure you follow us on social media so you know when we have all these amazing guests joining us here on Game On DC. Like tonight, Joey, I don't want to waste any time. He is in the middle of a fantastic playoff run. I don't want to waste his time. So let's go ahead and bring on our guest live from Dallas, Texas. And also, the video screen's not working on my end. I'm going to have to get that fixed once again. But nonetheless, JBM from WizDG, the defending champions, joining us on Game On DC. Jack, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you guys, John and Joey. I'm excited. Hopefully give the DC people a little insight, a little scoop of what we've been up to and, what we've done in preparation to get to where we're at.
Absolutely. So I just want to go ahead and kick it off here while I try to fix our cameras at the exact same time as we do this. For you, the playoffs is the first time you played on a live stage. You were drafted last year, obviously number 1 overall draft pick. We'll throw that in there as well. It was remote due to COVID, and this year was remote as well. But the postseason now taking place in person in Dallas, minus a live crowd. But being on stage brings kind of a different environment. As your first time on stage being in the playoffs, what was that like for you in that experience in that first round against the Knicks?
I loved it. And I would say the main reason why I loved it was, just this sense of real, accountability you have as an individual and keeping, a solid body language and image to the other team, because the only real cue you can get from somebody else is their body language. So when you're in the facility playing from remote, the only thing you can see on the other team is the actual player, right? The virtual player. But in the facility, someone messes up, whatever, you see them react, you see them get hype, and you can kind of use that against them, right? So maybe they're a little off focus, maybe they're too excited, whatever it is. So it's so much more of a mind game, in person, and I've really appreciated that because I think that adds a whole nother dynamic to the game.
So now, with that being said, JBM, do you feel like that gives you guys an advantage? Obviously, Dave Fry is one of the loudest players out there. Do you feel like that plays into WizDG's hand?
I think we all, we know ourselves, and I think that's the biggest thing in all this, right? Is just knowing what element you play best in. I think that's the biggest thing in any sport or whatever. It's having a routine or whatever, just so you can stay crystal clear focused, but at the same time knowing what works best for you and in maintaining an optimal performance. So I think each one of us have a different personality on the stage, and they mesh and all meshes well together, and they complement one another super well. And I think that's been super natural for us. I think all of our team has a pretty unique background off of 2K, just in the sense of we have a lot of former athletes and just upbringings, and that's helped us tremendously, and in just transitioning so smoothly. There was no real plan of how we were going to act when we were on stage. We just kind of went up there, we played, we all knew what we came here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have to ask, how is Dave Fry different a little bit here when he's on stage versus kind of in the studio? Like he made his name really in season one, back when he was with Dallas. We won't talk about those days, but really, like that's where like his personality really came from. Like he was known as the guy who was super vocal, like playing those mind games. What was it kind of like seeing Dave Fry, act that way on stage and really get into the minds of the other team?
Yeah, so obviously he can talk for hours just naturally and aggressively, whatever it is. But I think, he's done a really good job of kind of dialing it back when he needs to dial it back. And I think as a team, we've just stayed super focused throughout. And I think he realizes that too. Like, talking is great and whatnot, but you're not going to run faster because you're talking louder. You're not going to make more shots. At the end of the day, it's a video game. And I think he has a really good mix of going at the other guys, making them uncomfortable, but also staying super locked in on the task at hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw some emotion from you as well in the Knicks game. You started to get into it as well. I don't know if there's any bad blood there between the two teams, or just a nice rivalry there, since you guys just played, I believe, in week 9 of the regular season. It wasn't too long ago. But that was pretty vocal as well. But then your series against the Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals, not a whole lot of talking from you, but some side glances over there talking to Chalk, who's one of the top scorers in the entire league, and once again, WizDG, one of the best defensive teams, if not the best defensive team in the entire league, shutting him down. What was that kind of like, actually in that moment, sitting maybe 4 or 5 feet away from him, and just kind of really taking it to him and his team?
Yeah, so I think with everybody, everyone who you play, you kind of approach it a little different, right? And I think coming into these games, I have a pretty good understanding of who I'm playing against. So for one guy, yelling at him might be the route to go to throw him off, and for another guy, it might be like, hey, why isn't this guy talking to me, right? And so I think with Chalk, it was more he might have came in thinking I was going to say something to him. I kind of just kept it pushing, and I wanted him to just beat me at 2K. I didn't even think there should be a mental component to it. With the Knicks, however, I felt like I could talk to them a little more. They were a little more irritable, and that stuff like that was going to work. So I think every team has their areas that you attack. Just in terms of a mental attack, and I think the Knicks are much more. The Nets will self implode, right? So we kind of let them. We kind of just did all the playing, and hopefully they were going to fall on each other. With the Knicks, you kind of aid in that, and they're a little more unified, and so we had to take initiative to help them self implode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to touch on that the Knicks series here real quick, in the Eastern Conference semifinals with them. In game 1, it was a 68-56 win for WizDG. You had 26 points, 9 assists. So again, very impressive numbers in game 1. In game 2, it was a 76-64 win. Definitely a closer series in comparison to the next series we'll talk about here in a little bit. But also in game 2, 30 points, 11 assists. You got your double-double. You shot 13 for 20 from the floor. You shot 50% from behind the arc. A lot of people had questions. I know there's on social media, a lot of people were talking about, what is it going to be like for these people on stage in their first time, playing in that kind of atmosphere. And you really responded, just Awkward really responded, and B-Rich really responded for your guys' first time on stage. I mean, even Exo LeBron, he's back there, he's hyping you guys up, he's rocking the shades and everything. Like he's got that attitude also. It was a very hard fought win for you guys in that series. But that mental component that you talked about was like you guys used that to your advantage to help them implode. What was it about the Knicks that kind of made them a little bit more challenging here for you in the postseason? Just because you guys played them several times in the regular season? Why were they able to stay so close?
I think from a just a gameplay component, they played a little slower. They made a little bit less mistakes, so we knew each possession counted a little bit more against them, which obviously is it turns the game around a little bit. Like the Nets were playing super fast, so we had a little more freedom and whatnot. But and the thing is, the Knicks also, they talked a little more, and I really like that because at the end of the day, if I don't want to listen to you, I'm not going to listen to you. Like I feel like it's pretty easy to block somebody out when you have headphones on and what like no one's gonna no one's gonna hit you. Like it's there there's there's not too many fighting words coming either. So it's like it's a super interesting thing when it's I almost like when people yell at me because I know they're not as focused. And that was like my edge up in the Knicks game. And like with the Nets, they were super reserved, and I could see the thing with them is their body language turned. So like that was my cue for them. Like, okay, we got them. You know what I mean? The Knicks, it was like, oh, they're starting to yell for no reason now. Okay, we got them. The Nets, it was their body language. So for everyone, it's different. But at the end of the day, it's like you got to take all that with a grain of salt. And if you can just focus crystal clear every play, you naturally have a competitive advantage against the other team. Just because I know they're going to take at least one play off. They're going to say something that they shouldn't say. It's going to get to them a little bit. So yeah, both those teams had their own style, and it was interesting, getting to, you learn a lot, about just playing. Like, that was my first time playing, and I felt like we got much better. Also, like the Knicks played us a little better, I think, but we also got much better. We shot much better. We were a lot more comfortable, just in the whole atmosphere. So, it was nice to see us, the results show, and I feel really good going into next week. But obviously, it's a whole other series, it's a whole other team. We're starting from scratch there too.
Absolutely. And we're excited to preview that one. But before we get there, so talk us a little bit about the bracket so far, Jack. So just looking at the bracket initially, did you guys expect to come out and play the Knicks in the first round?
I had a good feeling that we were going to. I thought they were the better team with them and the Grizzlies, and I knew if they won that we were automatically going to play them. So, I was definitely somewhat expecting it, and it was tough because they played the day before, right? We got a bye, which is cool, but they had, you know, 3 real hours of practicing on the stage before they played us. Not only is the shot a little different, but just getting the butterflies out of your stomach, and everyone feeling comfortable and whatever. They had a little advantage with that. So I knew they were a team that was going to come in ready to play. Obviously, they got us in the regular season, so that was another reason I wanted to get my run back. But at the same time, I had a lot of respect for them as a team, and I knew we had to come ready.
All right, so with that, let's move into the Eastern Conference Finals here. It was a matchup that a lot of people were dying to see. It was you going up against Chalk, two of the best point guards in the entire league. We saw a little bit of a preview of this. I believe it was way back in week 6. So there's a lot of time in between now and then. The Nets have really corrected a lot of their mistakes, or so we thought going into this series. At one point in time, they committed the most turnovers in the league at that point when you first played them. Now they've kind of cleaned up their play a little bit. And Chalk, aka the fadeaway king, is definitely someone you have to game plan for. He is a very talented 2K League player. So in game 1, you guys jumped out to a 10-0 start in the first quarter and really forced the Nets to be on their heels for the rest of the game. It was a very quick start for you guys, and you never really looked back. How important was it to have that kind of a strong start against a high-scoring team, or a team that's able to score a lot of points really quick like the Nets?
I think you said it best, right? So like in a team like that, that's super volatile, but has a lot of firepower. It's the start of the game is crucial. You kind of set the tone, and I think we came out game 1 and did exactly what I could have hoped for. And I think we saw it right away. Like, hey, they don't even want to be here. We went up 10-0, and I looked over, and it seemed like the game was over. So like against a team like that, as you said, like, it's so important to limit their runs and at the same time really make an emphasis on taking advantage of when they do give us some leeway. Just because like we know any little space like that, and they're gonna fall over. But just in terms of someone like Chalk, like he's a super high pace, flashy, whatever type of player, and at the same time that lends itself to giving up big runs, and also like you take him off his rhythm, and I wanted to see him adjust and play a game he wasn't comfortable playing, and I think we did a super good job taking him out of his element and not letting him get to the spots he was comfortable getting to. And I think it was pretty clear from a viewer perspective that that team was super, uncomfortable, and they weren't playing the way they did to get them to, ultimately get them to play us in the first place. So we took them off their game pretty well, and we did a really good job of just keying in on the opportunities they did give us and taking advantage of those. And the guys came so prepared, and like that's the biggest thing about us that I never take for granted. Justin, Ryan, Deanie, Brandon, they watch so much film and they're so prepared, and their game plan is so on spot every game that it makes it that much easier, right? We have such like a little, if it's two plays that we can know, prior to them doing it, that changes the game, because then they're thinking about, oh, they're second guessing everything. So all this league is really is preparation, execution, and I think we're really, really capitalize on the opportunity to prepare.
Yeah, absolutely. You took game one, 98-86, one of your highest scoring games. Actually, at the time, it was the highest scoring game for WizDG, only to be bested by game two. But before we head there, I just want to point out real quick. I say it all the time on the broadcast for Monumental Sports Network and NBC Sports Washington that WizDG really is a five-headed monster. It's a team that forces the opponents to really pick their poison. Who do they really want to go after and try to shut down? But at the same time, who are you going to be like? How are you going to be able to shut down the rest of this team? If for any reason, let's say you have a bad game or they double team you and they really, force bad shots for you, you have B Rich, who's averaging close to 16 points a game. You have Nudini, who's coming alive once he was moved back to the 4 spot. You have Dave Fry, that's a beast in the corner. You have Awkward, that's popping off on both sides of the ball. I mean, it really is pick your own poison. And here in game one, you had 31 points, 15 assists. B Rich, 15 points. Just Awkward, 26. Nudini, 12. Dave Fry, 14 and 10 assists and 8 rebounds. Dave Fry almost averaged a triple-double in this series. Like, every single player stepped up and had double digits in points, and that's exactly what was needed because, the Nets had 3 players scoring 20-plus points in game one. I mean, what does it say to this league when every single player on that floor is able to step up and really help carry this team if someone else has an off night?
So I think the biggest thing about that is just, we're able to adjust on the fly to so many different looks. Like, no matter what they do, we're not, we can literally adjust in real time and be ready for that possession. No matter what defense it is, if they're taking the ball out of my hands, everyone is so smart and so intuitive on the court that it's super hard to prepare for us defensively. Like, you don't really know what you're going to get. I don't think we have too many tendencies. So, if they're taking the ball out of my hands, I've played with Ryan so much. He has a pretty good idea of, where to be. And, he has a 4-on-3. He makes the right read every time. And that's so much easier. They take away Ryan's pass. Brandon knows how to create an angle where he has a good play option, whatever it is. But I think that's the thing. Like, there's no real game plan for us. And I think that's why we've been so hard to beat and why we've been so hard to beat for such a long time, because there's no, oh, we figured them out. It's just not a thing with us. And I have to, it's so good. I got to give these guys so much credit because, like, throughout the season, in practice, I mean, there's practices when I might as well, I shouldn't even be playing. Like, I'm just so bad sometimes. And these guys they do such a good job of, like, being like, hey, there's going to be times like this, we got to learn how to win when I'm not giving them anything. And then, it helps so much because you get to moments like this where, people are going to give you different looks and you got to be ready for everything. And that's why you see, like, these teams, a pretty common denominator with the teams that are successful late in the season is, I think the point guard isn't super, super high usage in a sense, right? Like, everyone's usually able to make a play. And that's the hardest stuff to beat because, you can't always play perfect. And, it's a little easier in the regular season because there's people don't have as much time to prepare and people don't take the preparation seriously. But, when you're playing for a lot of money, you really want to come in with a real game plan. So, if we have the ability to adapt to anything thrown at us, that makes us that much harder to play against. And that's, to your point, John, why having 5 people that can make a play is so hard to play against.
Absolutely. And speaking of game plans, heading into game 2, JBM, it was close in the first quarter, and then you guys kind of blew them out after that. The final score of 109-69. You yourself put up 40 points in this one. What are your thoughts going into this? Was this one of the games where you felt like you guys started to get into their mind in game 1 and really blew it out here in game 2?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. So we slowed down the fourth quarter of game 1, and my thought process was on that was like, let's not give them any defensive rhythm in the sense of like, I don't want them to be able to throw a different look and see how it looks. Like I was giving the ball up a lot and just, kind of just trying to play within a flow. So game 2, we could come out and really punch them in the mouth again. And I think in hindsight's obviously 2020, but I think we should have kept it on the gas with them to finish game 1, and then we would have better start game 2. But I think they came out with a little bit of a different game plan game 2, and obviously it's a fresh new game. They're gonna come out trying to punch us in the mouth, and we did such a good job adjusting following that first quarter, and just like sticking to what we knew was gonna work, and we just outlasted them. Like they just they had us for a little bit, but like we have such a good game plan, I would say, and we have people that trust the game plan. So it's like, even when 2 possessions don't go right, we still, no one's panicking because everyone's so prepared. And that's the formula I've found to any success in anything, right? Is like having a game plan, having a routine, and really trusting it, and being able to, if it's not working, being able to, justify why it's not working and just adjust. And I think like we're super transparent with one another through the mic and in the comms and whatnot. And I think like, they can do something different, and we, all 5 of us can be like, hey, Jack, slow down, or Justin, stop being so aggressive, whatever it is. And it's like, it all makes sense. And like, that's why, that just goes back to the trust that we have within one another. And that's the difference, man. Like, if you look at these teams, like the teams that really play for one another and have a good relationship, you can even probably tell through the camera, like those are the harder teams to beat, because, they don't fold on one another, and, they obviously think better, and, they adjust better, and they believe in one another. And even though it's a video game, that stuff really adds up, because you have to make a decision every second. So it's like if you're second guessing your decision because you don't think the people around you trust you, or you don't want to mess up because you don't, whatever it is, that just puts the other team, if they do trust each other, at a huge advantage. So I think that's why we've been so good, honestly. Just like everyone wants to play for one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned a couple things here in game 2 before we jump to the finals here for you. You guys did start out a little bit slower in that first quarter, and a lot of people were saying like, okay, well, maybe, the Nets have figured something out. Maybe this is going to be a lot closer. A lot of people knew this series was going to be incredibly high scoring, just because of the skill of both of these teams. But really, it showed WizDG being able to bounce back after a slow start. Maybe after a start, like you said, where you finished game 1, you took your foot off the gas a little bit, which caused a little bit of a slower start in game 2. But you were able to bounce back. You guys fought back. You got the slight lead at the end of the first quarter. It was 1.17-16, I believe. And then after that, you guys threw down 32 points in the second quarter, 22 in the third quarter, and 38 to finish the game out. It was by far one of the cleanest games I have ever seen in 2K. And obviously, you guys being professionals, you'll find things here and there that maybe didn't go right. But in terms of overall team play, I mean, you guys forced 13 turnovers against the Nets. And again, the Nets are a team that was prone to turnovers, and they kind of limited them in the second half of the regular season. You forced 8 in the first game, 13 in the second game. If my math is correct, that's 21 in the entire series. And that really, really hurt the Nets. And then again, once you guys put the foot down on the gas pedal again, they had absolutely no chance. And again, just like in game 1, you had 40 points. Beavrich had 16. Awkward had 23. Dini had 14. Dayfry had 16. I mean, look, I'm gonna be honest. Like Joey and I, we've been watching the 2K League since the start. We've been following WizDG obviously since its announcement. This has to be hands down one of the best, not just WizDG teams, best teams skill wise and like you said, trust wise in the entire league in its short history. I mean, you guys now have the chance to do something no other team has done. First, you win the championship last year. You qualify for the playoffs this year. That's historical. 2, you make it back to the finals. That's also historical. And 3, you have the chance to go back-to-back now, and you're going up against a tough team, Jazz Gaming, that's really come alive after their midseason trade. Just a reminder for everyone, back on July 23rd, the Jazz had a trade with Bucks Gaming. Expose and a second-round pick went to the Bucks, and Lottie and a fourth-round pick went back to the Jazz. And if you follow the league, Lottie was on the team prior to this season. So he comes back, and a lot of people expected that chemistry to click almost instantly, and that's exactly what happened. We saw that with the Jazz, and they just essentially took off. They're another great team. Splashy is a heck of a player, and that's who you're going to be going up against here in the finals. Give me a little bit of a preview here of what we can expect in the finals, and without giving too much away, obviously, what is your personal game plan going up against a tough player like Splashy?
Yeah, so obviously when somebody's that good at the game, it's all about putting them in spots they don't want to be in consistently, and making them think on the fly every single play. So it's just going to come down to being able to give him different looks, make him play at a pace he might not be comfortable playing at, and just keeping him uncomfortable. Once he's in his element, once these kids are comfortable, they're really good. So it's like, but at the same time, it's not, they're not impossible to get out their comfort zone. It's just not, that's what's so interesting about this whole thing is like you look at some of these kids' numbers and you're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But at the same time, at the end of the day, if I don't want someone to shoot a shot, they don't have to shoot a shot. Right. So it's like, you can kind of control everything. And my biggest thing, and like, it's just not turning the ball over. And, cause I feel like it's almost like it allows us to capitalize on our preparation, specifically on the defensive end. Like if we have such a good game plan going in and they're running the break, and, the only defense we're playing is me chasing the other guy, dunking the ball in the fast break. That's just not, that's not what it is. So, we're going to come in, try and limit turnovers, try and put them in spots they don't want to be in. And, I think things should take care of themselves. And I just, it's all about just maintaining a clear focus every play. And, hopefully, we break them before they break us. That's really what it usually comes down to.
And obviously, one of the things, you don't have to talk too much about tactics here, but I'm sure you guys checked out the last game they had with the Warriors. Were you predicting the Jazz to come out in that one? Were there any surprises that stuck out to you?
I really didn't know. It's, they're different types of teams. But like the Warriors, they have a super, their point guard's super smart, and like you can't ever rule people like that out of games, because it's not even about how they're going to play. It's about how their team's going to be prepared and how they're going to be able to adjust. So like I knew the Jazz won game 1, and I knew the series was far from over. I honestly thought when it went to game 3, the Warriors were probably going to win, but the Jazz obviously showed up, and then all kudos to them to be able to bounce back from a tough one in game 2, and that just shows the type of team they are. And that's why they are where they are. It's resiliency, it's mental toughness, and it's being able to block out the last play and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I know a lot of people had their mouths watering around the idea of a rematch for WizDG going up against the Warriors. Again, I mean, CB13, another great player in the league. You guys played him pretty well earlier in the season. You did split that series 1-1, but again, a lot has changed since that series in week 3. It was a tough series against the Jazz, but nonetheless, the Jazz make it out of the West. They're the first ever Western Conference champion. WizDG, another history moment here, the first ever Eastern Conference champions here as well. Before we let you go, what's your whole take now that you've been in the season last year versus this year? Are you a fan of the conference play where it's a little bit more like the NBA where it's split up East versus West?
Well, with Corona 100%, just because you alleviate all the delay issues and whatnot, playing teams that you're closer to location wise, the actual connection's better. And then, I think, it gives the league a different dynamic. Like there's another spin on it. And I think that's pretty cool. And just to be able to it's a little more tangible for an outside viewer to be like, hey, these are the East Coast teams, these are the West Coast teams, just like the NBA. They're playing each other, and it draws that gap between the game and real life, and which I think is the next step for the league, is being able to make it so people can really relate to these players on a personal level, and not only appreciate what they do on 2K, but where they come from and why they play the way they do, and just being able to pick the minds of these guys a little more. And I think that conference thing, as crazy as it sounds, is one step in the right direction towards doing that, just because it's a cool twist. And I think the league did a great job this year of being super organized with that, and taking out those connection issues. And then, like, for the playoffs, it was super cool because you didn't know who you were really going to see on the other end. It wasn't just like the best teams made it. You know what I mean? It kind of gave a little spin to it, and like it makes the end of the season that much more competitive, because there's all these subdivisions you're competing for. You're competing for buys, six seeds for the ticket tournament, whatever it is. Like, the league made it so like this whole season was super competitive throughout. It's not like teams are like, hey, we're out the race. All right, we'll try and get it out the ticket, or we'll try and whatever. Like, you have to compete every game. Like, every game matters. And I think the conferences, made it much more appealing to a viewer, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we won't talk about the internet and the Toronto team from last year. I know that's still salty for some people over there. But you guys did the league a favor by knocking them out of the playoffs last year. So we'll leave it there. Jack, I don't want to take too much more of your time here. Thank you so much for joining us here on Game On DC. For everyone who is watching, the finals happen this Saturday, the 4th of September, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Central time. It is a best of 5, correct? Best of 5?
Best of 5, yep.
Best of 5 against Jazz Gaming. Look, DMV, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not watching this team. Absolutely fantastic. And this is the only market where you have multiple options to watch. You can watch on Twitch. You can watch on Monumental Sports Network. That's all free for everyone within 75 miles of DC. You can easily tune in and watch that broadcast. NBC Sports Washington carries it live on television. Yes, esports on cable television. You have so many ways to watch in. Tune in, cheer on WizDG as they look to make history this Saturday. Jack, again, I can't thank you enough for joining us here on Game On DC, and I can't wait to have you and the rest of the team hopefully back on Game On DC soon.
Thank you guys. You guys. I love talking about this stuff. You made it fun to talk about, and hopefully everything works out next weekend.
Absolutely, man. Best of luck.
All right, guys. Bye.
See you. All right, that was JBM from WizDG. Joey, unbelievable insight that we just got into the mind of a champion, into the mind of someone who is going for history, looking to go back to back this Saturday. Absolutely insane what he just told us for this entire postseason. I mean, this is what you want if you're a DMV esports fan. You want this inside look into the mind of a champion in an esports league.
And I love the fact that it's both WizDG as well as the Justice. Just these DC teams in general are so centric on the team focus in and of itself. It's not just one star player that carries the full team. Now, there are plenty of stars between the two teams, but it's all about that team mentality. If someone's faltering, someone else steps up. There's always the ability to correct one another in comms. It's just a different level of teams here in DMV.
Absolutely. So again, tune in this Saturday, 5 p.m. Cheer on WizDG as they go on the quest to make history, to become the first team in league history to go back-to-back, going up against a tough Jazz Gaming squad. Make sure you follow JBM on Twitter and all of his socials, and WizDG. It's just absolutely fantastic. Jack is such a great guy, Joey. I've had a chance to talk with him after several series this year. Such a great guy. He honestly is exactly what you want if you're an organization and you're looking to invest time and money into a player. There's no better player than someone like a JBM with that kind of personality and that kind of drive to have on your team.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's a reason they took him #1 overall, and that's one of those factors. Not only does he perform very well in the virtual court, but also a wonderful personality off the court as well. From that teamwork to his ability to speak in interviews like he did today, he just gets the job done.
Joey, I don't want to stop there. We have one more topic to cover. We have another team in the postseason, the Washington Justice of the Overwatch League. And they're really making some history themselves too. Obviously the season didn't go exactly the way everyone really wanted it to go, but let's take a look at some of the bright side here, some of the silver lining, if we could, Joey. They have a winning record. This is a team that really struggled to in the first several years of their inception in the Overwatch League, struggle to make anything happen. They have a winning record. They're in the postseason. Yeah, it's a play-in game, but still they're making strides. They're still growing as a team. We have to remember this is a team that really got together about 2 months, maybe a month and a half before the season started. And it took time throughout the season for them to grow. Then you throw in all the different bans and the different hero pools that they throw in there, and it kind of really screws everything up. Now they are here in the postseason. We saw last year they made an incredible run in the postseason as well. Now they have a plan, and they're going up against the Paris Eternal. Joe, you and I had a conversation. They had a choice between them and Boston. I think we both were leaning Boston, and they told us we were wrong. And then they picked Paris. I want to pick your brain here a little bit, Joey. What's so interesting about this pick going with Paris instead of Boston?
I mean, honestly, both are in a similar spot. Like, you look at the Justice's matches, they played both these teams twice throughout the year. They got rocked by Paris in one match, and they got rocked by Boston in one match. In the win against Boston, they ended up going 3-1 and looked pretty darn dominant throughout. In the win against Paris, it was tight. It went to a game 5, and they ended up winning 3-2. So the Justice do go in with a 1-1 record against both these teams. But yeah, in the end, there was an egg involved, though, John. I think we should discuss that as well.
There was.
The choice was to go with Paris.
That was so fun to watch. First off, kudos to the social media team for the Washington Justice. That was a lot of fun to watch. I've never actually seen that played before. And that was super intense for me to watch. I'm like, okay, who's going to smash the A? Oh, okay, we keep going. That was so intense. I love content like that. WizDG also has content like that. Joe, I don't know if you saw this, but they had a breakfast cooking series they did on Twitter. Dayfry and B-Rich did their whole breakfast routine. They also did a 3v3 basketball tournament twice. That was a lot of fun. I think someone on social media tweeted, I can see why they're 2 K-League players, which I was like, that's brutal. I was like, wow, that was rude. But nonetheless, that's the kind of content fans want to see. And again, that was such a unique way to pick Paris as your team going up against the play-ins. And you mentioned it, back in week 6, it was a 3-0 win for Paris. Week 13 was a 3-2 win for the Justice. Let's preview this match with Paris real quick. They're a team that going into the season ran more of a, and correct me if I'm wrong, because my memory is blanking here a little bit. They were more of a rush style team versus a double bubble, which was more of the meta when the season started. And in week 6, it seemed to work out in their favor. But in week 13, the Justice were able to push them to 5 maps, like you said.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe this is how the bans fell. In our first match, Naga absolutely popped off on Echo, and that Echo ended up being banned out, I believe, for the returning match. So I think that was a big factor. Now, again, over the course of the season, we've talked about it on the show, Assassin has become one of those better Echo players as well. So maybe he's able to match Naga, assuming that is not with no bans being involved. I would think Naga's going to be back on that Echo. But that's a big thing to watch out for, because Naga got those flanks. Naga was able to pick off support players here and there for the Justice. And in the end, that ended up being a huge difference maker in some big team fights in that first series.
Absolutely. And now the playoffs are here. Joey, I think I speak for the entire Overwatch League when I say thank God there's no bans on heroes. If they do want to incorporate bans, let the players ban them. We're just another friendly suggestion. We're going to say it again. Let the players ban. There's nothing wrong with that. Anywho, look, even the 2K League does it for the turn tournament. They ban archetypes, and the players get to pick them. It works. It's fun. It's exciting. Let the players pick. So, no bans in the postseason. Let's do a quick preview. What do you expect from this Justice team? Do we see them making out of it against Paris?
I mean, John, it really comes down to how they perform on the escort maps as well as how they perform on the hybrid maps. And we've been talking about that all season long. It feels like that is the Achilles heel for this squad. We talked to Supreme and it's going well in scrim. So, hey, scrim bucks, we got those at least in our favor. But when it comes down to the stage, can we perform on those escort maps? Can we push that payload forward? And can we stop the other team from pushing it forward as effectively as they have this season? That's really what's going to come down for me. And when it comes down to those particular plays around that payload and clutch situations, up against this Paris team, it's going to be Naga again. Naga was the reason they came out and had such a dominant first series against us. I feel like they have to find a way to shut him down nice and early and keep the series in their hands by doing that.
Absolutely. And just for that, everyone, look, Saturday is the place to be. 3 p.m. on the 4th, this Saturday, the Justice take on the Paris Eternal. If that match finishes on time, it'll be done by 4:30, which means that you get a 30-minute bathroom and dinner break before you turn on your TV to watch WizDG defend their championship just 30 minutes later. Joey, it is going to be such a fantastic Saturday. I'm going to be glued to the TV. I'm going to be watching and cheering all of these teams on. I know you're going to be doing the same, and hopefully everyone here in the DMV will be supporting our amazing esports teams. Joey, it's championship and playoff Saturday. Not a lot of cities in the U.S. can say we have both Overwatch and NBA 2K League teams in the postseason, let alone in the finals with WizDG. It is such a great time to be an esports fan here in the DMV.
The East Coast capital of esports.
Absolutely. Joey, I think that's going to do it for us today. It was a absolutely exciting show today, having JBM on again. A big thank you to JBM and WizDG for allowing us to borrow him again live from Dallas, Texas. I mean, the man is literally practicing and reviewing video every single day with the team, getting ready for that matchup. And again, we have the Justice this Saturday as well. It's just I'm so pumped, and I can't wait for this Saturday. But DMV, that will do it for this week's episode of Game On DC. And if you enjoy listening to Game On DC, we want to hear from you. Leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or someplace else. We would love to hear from you. In fact, we love to hear from the entire DMV. We have other places for you to follow and sub along and interact with us. Joey, what are some of those places?
Absolutely, guys. Head over to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and find us at GameOnDC. Additionally, on any of those social media platforms, we also check hashtag GoDC. Last but not least, you can follow the umbrella company OTN Media. Pretty much OTN Media on all those platforms, as well as on YouTube. Just search for us as OTN Media, or on Twitch, twitch.tv/OTN Media.
Absolutely. Make sure you tune in next Monday. We are recapping Championship Saturday and Playoff Saturday next Monday on the 6th. There we go. The 6th of September. So make sure you tune in to your home for gaming and esports news here in the DMV. Game On DC. We'll catch you all on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week. And as always,
Game on DC.